Jacob Brown, Public Speaking 1315, Persuasive Speech, the Draft. As an American citizen, you have your right to make your own choices coming out of high school, right? Most people would say yes, you do have the right to make your own choices upon graduation. However, there is one exception to this, and that is if there was an active military draft going on when you graduated. A military draft is a means for the U.S. military to call up additional troops when needed for national defense. The troops are called up involuntarily, and they must be males between the ages of 18 and 25. Many people in the United States disagree with the draft. This is because they only see the downside of the draft. They say it's unconstitutional and goes against people's rights. However, I support the draft. I think it's something that we need as a country. It might be involuntary, but I think that everyone in this great nation should and would want to serve this country when in need. There are many reasons that the U.S. should keep the selective service system going, and I would like to talk about a few of them. They are the representation, cost, size, and support that the military draft provides the United States Armed Forces when in need. First of all, the draft would create a military force that has representatives from all forms of society. The current volunteer army does not accurately represent American society for many reasons. The U.S. Armed Forces have a notable lack of women and upper-class citizens. An ideal draft would change this by taking those who came up in a lottery, regardless of their gender or social standing, making just about anyone eligible. This would make the armed forces more representative of American society as a whole. Next, the draft would actually save the U.S. military money. It would be cheaper to train draftees than to train an all-volunteer force, because there would be more soldiers entering basic training at once. So the U.S. military wouldn't have to wait around and waste money until they have enough recruits to start training. And from the streamlined amount of troops entering basic training, the units of soldiers would be a greater size. So the U.S. military could train more soldiers at once, which would also save money. Also, with the draft, the U.S. could save money in the area of advertising. Even though the U.S. would have to increase soldiers' pay because the number serving would greatly increase, so they could cut their advertising costs altogether. Another area the draft could save money is in recruiting. The U.S. military could almost eliminate recruiting because there would be no need. They could almost eliminate recruiting costs because there would be no need to recruit with the draft's lottery system. Recruiting is an extreme expense of the military, considering the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps together spent more than $600 million on recruiting in 2007. The third benefit of the draft could keep the military a certain size. There would be no shortages of personnel or failed recruitment goals because all openings would be filled by a mandate. The size of the military would be large enough to take on any nations in case of war. This would be good because with the draft maintaining a substantial amount of active soldiers, the United States would be ready for war at all times and wouldn't have to worry about mobilizing for war and not having enough troops to start the war. Finally, with an active draft installed, it would bring more support from all different societies across the United States. Ideally, the draft would achieve greater public support because the draft would take young males from all levels of society. Since it would be a shared burden across society, the draft could act as a way to bring people together across class and ethnic boundaries. For these reasons, along with many more, I would hope that you agree with me when the time of need for starting an active draft comes, and that the people of the United States would support it and bring us closer together as a nation. Former President George W. Bush once said, during his campaign for office, "Our all-volunteer army will remain an all-volunteer army. We will not have a draft. The politicians that supported a draft are Democrats, and the best way to avoid a draft is to vote for me. While I do like President Bush and many things that he stands for, I could not disagree more with the quote of his I just read to you. Freedom is not free. It does come at a cost, and we as a nation have to stand up and fight for our freedom at times. That's just how it is and how it always will be. We as Americans have so many privileges and rights compared to any other nation in the world, and I believe sometimes that we take these rights for granted. So when our country is in military need, I do think we should start an active military draft again to make sure we can protect our great nation from foreign powers. I think it would be an honor to serve the United States of America, and I believe that many people feel the same way.